time up to...
They got self-wheeling e-bike controllers. How you do that for fuel injection?
Oh, first try.
I think I'm gonna finally try to cut this brake mount off, put it on there. I don't know, just kind of hard to do this with all the neighbors so close together and not trying to get in any trouble when the place is so nice and expensive. Hey. It'll just drop, hang from there. Gonna definitely want to clean that up. It'll work. I probably should have just kept a drum. I feel like it's easier to, although I don't know how well it would have worked, but it's easier to run a handbrake to a drum rear than it is to a hydraulic disc rear. For me, on this bike, only because there's no pre-made mounts. I have ideas. I have 2 mounts I was thinking of chopping and welding together, so still gonna check into that. If you picture my phone, it was getting pushed like that every time a pressure was applied in through the brake rod. So I welded in the new mount. It's definitely 1,000 times better. I'm just doing shit, cutting shit, welding shit, making a new brake mount, adapt and overcome, or whatever the fuck. But just not how I wanted this to go. And I need to have this on an angle so when it welds up to this piece, which is the plunger for the inside of this master, I need it to weld like at an angle so it pushes it the way I want it to. Good stuff, good stuff.
Board kits, and they're really nice. They're basically the
Now, I'd like to keep the rear foot brake, which is super easy on a mechanical setup because it just needs to move this arm right here. And off of CRF50, XR50 stunt bikes, you'll see that they often just use a little tab right here, connecting their brake arm and their new handbrake in the rear. I'm going to do what I can to make it as sturdy as possible, but that's how I'm going to connect and keep my foot brake and my handbrake. Obviously, when one is working, the other will also be like a loose or compressed lever, so just keep that in mind. All right, so far looking good with the paint. I had painted the inside of the rim for all the rust that I had to grind out. I painted half that brake arm, and that was an artistic choice.
There's a bunch of different categories and stuff like that that you put your, and then you submit the form, and your bike will be featured on the house website, which is super cool. Also, in our menu, put in all
even through every religion, we still don't really understand. Like, we don't really know with absolute clarity who we are.
Alright, I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I plasti dipped these things. I used Dip Your Car aerosol. This is Wicked Wine. And I did this with the intentions of not doing any prep work because plasti dip sets easy, gives a pretty even coat. Yes, it will still highlight some negatives, like you can see that there. Definitely see where the old taillight used to sit. It's okay, the seat will cover up to here, and then I'll have a kick plate covering that. Highlight some dents. Just like any paint, you do want to do some prep work, but I don't. I foam brushed this on with Rust-Oleum enamel and I sprayed this with plasti dip. Same with the wheels. I just taped up to the nipples, painted the nipples and the rim. That is a 45 tooth sprocket. This is for, I believe, a Duke 125, a KTM Duke 125. And then I yellow tire painted the name of the Kenda tire. These are Kenda Challengers, but dude, those rims with that color, that Rebel's about to be so sick.
Anyone who has the credit. It's anyone who could get their, at that particular time, anyone who could get their hands on a loan to buy a house.
But who has the
on
credit?
housing
Who is on the other side of the debt? So if the average British family
Yeah, the
has
banking
£500,000
license.
in
Well, a
debt,
banking license.
does the average British family have £500,000 in credit?
Well, a lot of people have got a lot of equity in their home now.
You think the average British family is sitting on £500,000 cash?
I'd love to look at what the actual number is, but it's a couple of 100,000 worth of equity. 78.
But what about the
but it's-
credit on the loan?
But it's
Credit on the loan.
Bear in
Who
mind,
owns the credit on the loan?
bear in mind, it's disproportionately older people. So 78%.
So you think the average British old person is sitting on millions of pounds of cash?
Not millions of cash, no, equity.
Well, someone is on the other side of the story.
Just one second. The difference is if you inflate the value of a house.
I guess I don't really know what direction you want to go with this.
One of them, you're spraying fuel into the cylinder, and it floods the cylinder out. That's kind of what kills the decel pop. And the other one is leaning it out. So I don't remember. We got to read the notes, but I don't remember which way does what.
So
I want more in.
in the low, all the way down to 1440. That's max engine.
All right, let's do that.
You want max engine?
Yeah, from time to time. Yeah, pour it on out of there.
This is that like $90 to $100 eBay Amazon Rebel tank. It looks fine, but it didn't fit well. I had to cut out just the back of this mount. It just needs to be clamped down. It doesn't matter forward or backward. These two will handle that. But these two up here were a little bit wide, so I just had to squeeze it together and then eye it up, line it up, and it works. Alright, gang.
First time, Amazon went public in the same year as an online book retailer. eBay became popular as a website where you could auction off just about anything in the world, and this only created more and more billionaires. By 1999, the Forbes 400 list had 268 billionaires, about 30 times more than just 20 years earlier, with people like Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, and Sergey Brin being just a few examples of the massive fortunes that tech was generating in the late 90s. But I think that this tech and stock market boom was pretty much seen as good for everybody. One big thing that was downstream of all of this was the rise of jobs. As younger people filled cities in an attempt to chase these flashy new high-paying jobs that were created, flooded America's biggest cities to make a bunch of money in banking, and happily spend it on a luxurious lifestyle, cars, eating out, fancy new electronics.
Here's my little electrical on this bike. These are your new taillights. They're flush mount. Got them off Amazon. Just use a step bit and widen out these holes here. Pop them in. No signals, so it cuts a lot of the harness down. I have no dash, no hand controls. Cuts a lot of that harness down. On this computer, you have to ground one of the wires off of the computer to kill the motor. So you can't just cut power to the computer. So I have to keep at least a kill switch somewhere. That ignition switch was off of Amazon, really cheap. This was the company, that's where you can get it, but it's on Amazon. I have a brake light switch off of a Shadow 1100, and I'm using the 7/8 bar end mirror mounts, but I wound up having to grind out a lot on the inside to get it to fit. Alright, so turn it on one click and you'll see a yellow light, running light. And then I have these buttons. White light, yellow light, both of them. She bright. Snow's melting, but it's like 47 degrees, so I might ride. Cleaning out the garage a little bit, and we're supposed to get like 12 inches of snow tomorrow. I mean, you can't make this shit up. All right, I got the Shadow going, and I feel like riding just a little bit, so here we go. Alright, so a lot of you guys keep asking me about the Shadow parts I've got, like the bars, the riser setup, how I got that rear wheel on there. And honestly, the rear wheel isn't anything special. This is literally just a Shadow 1100 Ace wheel with the swing arm because it has the disc brake mount. And then I bought the caliper and the rotor. I just typed in Shadow 1100 Ace rear rotor, found that decent looking rotor. A gaffer brake line, or galfer, however the fuck you pronounce it. But yeah, that's how I got that disc set up back there. It was super easy. Just swap over the swing arm, which you pop these out. You're gonna have to get a Honda specific tool, and then you turn that nut out, and then you can back out these like nub of a bolt that kind of sits like that far and just holds the swing arm in like that. It doesn't go all the way through. But yeah, so you do that, change over the swing arm, and then all the shit bolts right up. So super easy. And then for the handlebars, I just got Pro Taper. They're contours, so they're 1 1/8 at the clamps, and then they're 7/8 at the grips. So you're gonna need to, if you want to do this, you're gonna need to get all new levers, throttle, grips. I personally cut down the harness, so I don't have any hand controls anymore, which is honestly super nice. Really makes it more like a moto style. And then these are just Amazon risers for a Harley. They're 1 1/8 at the clamp, but the thing that you'll have an issue with is that the spacing for Honda risers versus Harley risers is actually wider, so you have to cut the clamp and then, you know, do your best to make it look pretty. I wound up cutting it using, there's like a couple pieces I was able to cut and drill out the holes and make it work, but it's not as clean as I would like, but it does work. And then this is literally just a mountain bike or bicycle GPS speedometer, so nothing crazy, guys, nothing crazy. And you guys ask about the throttle. Again, Amazon. I mean, most of this is Amazon, except for like your levers. You want to really be serious about your levers. This is off of a Honda ST 1100. This is a Brembo off a Ducati. I forget which model, but it's just a 15 millimeter master. And then over here I've got a Rebel 250 front brake. Now I like these a lot more. You can shim your stock stuff, so just buy shims. You can shim it if you'd like, and then the issue I have is that the reservoirs are curved. So the Rebel 250, this ST 1100, their reservoirs are not curved, so it looks a lot nicer. The Brembo reservoir I was able to hang off the side of the ST 1100 reservoir, and it works. So nothing special. This bike is really kind of a turd. I know you guys love it because it's different than, well, it's like a Dyna, but it's out of a Honda, and that was the whole goal. I'm not like a Honda only freak. I like all motorcycles. I actually really like Harleys, if you can't tell. This is purely just because this is what I had. I had this bike now. This is the longest I've owned anything. I've wrecked it. I've built it back to where it is now. And then to start it up, I just have a automotive style ignition now. I've never noticed there's like a little hunting tent in there. There's a little golf course here in New Jersey.